Welcome back to the Leadership Ignition podcast, where we're going to be talking about another fantastic topic today. We'll let Mike kind of share a little bit more about that. I'm Shane Beckham.
And I'm Mike Hough, and today we're going to be talking about real men do not run from the rain. We got some ideas for you on, what does it mean to be a man in adversity, and how do you handle it? So Shane, how do you want to get this started?
Well, Mike, there's a lot of different areas and ways that I could dive into those waters, as throughout my life, as well as yours and most anyone else that listens to this podcast. We're often faced with challenges and adversities and how we can handle it. Going back to what you and I were talking pre-podcast, talking about how, the risk factor of life and how that can create adversity. Same thing with not saying no, saying yes to everything can create adversity in our life. Our personal lives are not supposed to be on display for everyone else, but even with the advancement of social media, nobody truly knows what someone else is going through. So my opinion is adversity comes, and that's where, when you're facing the most adversity, that's when you have the ability to show the most character in your life. And you have two choices. And if we approach this as a man, it's what you and I witnessed as an older generation, and how our grandfathers handled things and how our fathers handled things, and what's been passed on to a lot of us. Now society is in a bit of a complex, what is male masculinity, and it's also oftentimes noted with negative connotations, which to me is vastly bizarre, but that's a whole nother topic. But saying all that to say this, Mike, when someone that is really connected with themselves and their values faces adversity, I believe it is the ones that we look at the most and maybe admire the most and respect the most that face the adversity head on and don't avoid it. Because the avoidance of the adversity only leads to what? More adversity. So my first point, Mike, to this, and kind of want to get your thoughts as well, is how many of us in today's world are willing to face the storm and not avoid it? Meaning, if we say real men don't run when it rains, what does that mean to you and I? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think first, just to comment on the idea of why do we look up to those that stand up to adversity is because of strength. It is the definition of masculinity, emotional and physical. The idea that you're not going to run from the things that are scary to you. You're going to face them head on, and so what does it mean to not run in the rain? Look, take the picture of a man getting out of his car, walking stoically through massive downpour, head straight ahead, not bent, not tilted, nothing trying to cover himself, and what that image projects to you versus the same environment, but somebody's running with their hands over their head and they're freaked out. The truth is that we all have rain in our lives every single day. And what is rain? It's an annoyance. It is a inhibitor to getting to where you're trying to go, but it's really nothing. And that's what that means to me is, you know, being able to identify what's a real issue and what's nothing, and how to navigate that with strength and courage and to push through challenges. I think all the time about work challenges. And one of the things I say to my team all the time is kill the monster when it's tiny. This is a very similar concept to what you said, which is don't wait for a problem to become a gigantic Frankenstein. Kill it when it's a little minion.
Why don't people do that? Why don't people kill it?
Because it's hard, man. You have to have courage. You have to stand in front of the bus and tell it to stop moving. And people don't do it because they're afraid of the impact to themselves, whatever that might be. A lot of times when we're talking about this, it's a person who's on your team who's toxic and they're dragging down everything else, and you don't want to address it because if you do, that's uncomfortable for you to have that conversation. So what? Stand in the rain. Or two, because you might have to do more work because you're going to have to deal with somebody who's no longer on your team. Too damn bad. Do the more work. It's a short-term problem versus the cancer that you're going to allow to propagate if you don't address it.
Mike, to that point, I see a lot of that in corporate America. A lot of it. I mean, it can spread down to the smaller business, but usually the teams are so small, like you can identify the toxicity and maybe move a little quicker or remove faster. Still not easy, but man, I tell you, and I can only speak for the paving industry because that's where where I cut my teeth. But it only takes it's literally one, and if they manage to work their way up into upper management, which I usually somehow see happen, cripple. It can cripple some of the best organizations that I've ever seen. One person. And to your point, it's not an easy conversation. And that's where your choice of leadership, who you bring up on your team, is critical. Because what I found myself doing lately in the face of adversity, Mike, is I panic. Okay, I'm drowned. I need help. I got X, Y, and Z. Do they GWC? Do they get it, want it, have the capacity to do it? Well, maybe they can hit two out of those three, but I'm unwilling to wait for the right person because I need help now. And you say, okay, you're promoted. How's that work? It doesn't, because they don't GWC it. They don't face adversity the right way, and they're going to half-ass what you give them to do. And now guess what that's created, Mike? You've created double the adversity because now the person that you've actually promoted, you're having to go back behind and clean up mess after mess after mess because you won't do one simple thing: kill the monster when it's tiny. You made a
Yeah.
mistake. Now fix it.
Well, and that's the other part of the problem is that, selecting leaders is tough. Selecting anybody for your team is really tough today because an interview will not tell you what person's true character is. It will not. A track record won't tell you where they've worked before. It doesn't tell you. If you're lucky, you know somebody who knows them, who's worked with them. But even that, people are slanted in their opinions of others. So the only way you know is once you've taken all the information the best you can, made the best decision you can, even in a panic situation, you're still making the best decision you can with the information you have at hand. But then they're on your team. Specifically, as you mentioned, if they're on your leadership team, it's what you evaluate them against thereafter. What are you willing to accept? We talk about that all the time and inside our organization is what are you willing to accept, whether that be safety standards or behaviors or attitudes, because whatever you're willing to accept, that's what you're going to get. Human nature is go to the lowest common denominator. And so if you set your standards really high, guess what you're going to get as the output? Really high outcomes. If you set your standards as whatever, I'll accept it because I need it. That's what you're going to get. Lowest possible outcomes. That's the other thing that we talk about all the time is kill a monster when it's tiny. And the cousin to that is when you know, and don't wait a second longer. That's the other thing that is very poorly done in most corporate cultures today. People know who's not performing, who's not delivering, who's got a bad attitude, negative Nelly, whatever. They just don't deal with it. And so there's a lot of reasons. There's HR reasons and legal reasons, whatever. Look, we'll defend you all day long if you do it the right way and you do the right thing. When you know somebody's not working, make that decision as quickly as humanly possible.
No, I couldn't agree more. And taking that and tying that back to the original concept here, it's the rain, like you said, is going to represent three things: adversity, discomfort, and chaos, right? It doesn't have to be a man. It can be any man, woman, whatever. But when you, like you said to the analogy, we all know how bad it sucks when it's raining and you got a long walk to go, but just the different mentality you have, like I'm going to step out of this car and I'm just going to walk like I normally walk to get where I'm going because I'm not going to panic. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but you know what? I'll dry off. And if I run, AKA if you're in your business and you're not paying attention, or it's going to create chaos amongst your employees. They're going to see you running through that adversity instead of taking your time and problem solving. And then once they see that, you're setting the model up for them to follow. You are setting the standard of this is uncomfortable for me. For what am I going to do? I'm going to run away from this shit because I don't want to deal with it. Well, guess what? That trickles down. When your team manager has a problem with an employee, what's he going to do? Or he or she, they're going to run from it because they don't want to deal with it because you have applied that logic, whether you've spoken it or not. It's real. It's there. So to take that a step further, the real men and women walk through the rain, steady, grounded, unshaken, because they want to have composure. They want to not show that frantic condition of panic. They want to kill the tiny monster and make sure that conditions stay true to who they are, They want to remain calm, they want to be deliberate, and they want to move forward in a very precise and concise way. So basically, it's it's basically saying anyone can run when it's sunny. Discipline is proving that you don't have to when it's pouring.
I like that. That's a cool thought. As you're talking, it's bringing me back to the original design of our logo. Where does that buffalo and the storm cloud come from? I'm not sure on this podcast we've ever talked about it in detail, have we?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So let's talk about it for a minute because it is this topic precisely, which is what's the difference between a cow and a bison in the storm? And if you look it up, this is factual. Cows in the storm, they'll huddle up under a tree, they'll just kind of stand there and get poured on. But they're technically they're running from the rain. They're trying to find a way to hide, but they don't know how to navigate the situation. So they just kind of huddle up and they get, for lack of a better word, beat up by the storm. Not a bison. Bison are smart. They look directly into that storm and they walk directly into the direction that the rain's coming. Now they do that. They're proud beasts. They're not running, but they're going directly into that storm because the faster they get through that storm as the storm's approaching them, walking directly into it, the sooner the pain stops. And so it's harder to do that than it is just to stand around and let it hit you. But you stop the pain sooner. And that's a key. It ties together everything else we've just discussed. And that's where we came up with our logo because that's what we're about is face into the storm, tackle adversity, and drive the outcome sooner. Life gets so much better when you do that versus you let life happen to you. Your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
No, I agree. And you tied it in perfectly to my second point that I was going to even, reverberate is the rain reveals what's real, right? We've established that we want to have controlled chaos, not created chaos. Chaos is going to come. How we choose to handle it is who defines us as a person, as a leader, as a father, as a friend, as a husband, all the things. So the rain will reveal what's real. But to your point about what happens when things get tough? Well, when the damn cows are getting poured on, they don't know what to do. So they try to run from it, but they don't accomplish anything. Now, obviously, there may be boundaries, whatever, but they just don't know how to handle that adversity. Well, the same thing goes for the bison that he knows he's smart enough to know this is not pleasant. This is chaos, but I'm going to point my compass to the north and I'm going to walk right through this storm because I know once I get through that storm, the sun's going to be coming. I'm going to come up out of that valley and start climbing back up the mountain. That's kind of my analogy here. The rain reveals what's real. The rain may be a valley that you're in because we all enter into valleys. If you're not entering in a valley, then you're not living, period. Work, personal, whatever it is, you're in a valley often, probably more than you're on the mountaintop. It's your chance. I had an old fireman tell me when I was a firefighter. I was a young guy back then, just out of the Marines, full of piss and vinegar, and I'd be complaining about something. He'd been in the fire service for years, and I just remember he'd say, Beckham, let me tell you something. I looked over at him. He said, son, ain't nobody making you dig that ditch. You don't like it, put the shovel down and get the hell out of here. Obviously, we weren't digging ditches, but the analogy, that had stuck with me. That one sentence stuck with me, and I was like, there's a lot of truth to that. The rain was revealing what was real. I was complaining about something I had no control over. How often do we do that? So my first point on this, Mike, is when conditions get tough, the pretenders are going to scatter. They're going to move away like the cows. The committed, they're going to stay in the storm until they find the way through it, right? That is the difference between humans as we know it today. And unfortunately, Mike, the scatterers are getting more and more. The committed are getting less and less. Because you know why? The committed are usually the one that's going to get crucified because you made a stand, you made a decision, and there's 83 camera phones pointed at you for making it, or everybody hears every word you say to regurgitate it on and twist your words around. So it's even getting harder and harder to do the right things. The shit I watch on social media, people just getting freaking whacked. People are filming instead of interacting. It's just bizarre to me, man. So just my first point on that is making sure you understand the commitment to stay in that rain, to stay forward, to find the path through instead of being like everyone else that's running as fast as they can to get out of the rain like the cows. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love it. And that whole social media phenomenon that we see of people just filming people getting it boils my blood to see it, to think your mission in life is to have likes versus stop this human tragedy. It's just scary to me that that's our world. But I want to cover back on the noise you probably hear in the background, a lot of doors banging and people talking from time to time, is because I'm here in Phoenix. We're about to launch a major operation for a major airline, and it will represent 10% of our revenue. It's a massive growth opportunity for us. So it'll be our single largest contract ever. And my entire executive leadership team is coming here today and tomorrow, and they will be here through the startup. It doesn't start till next Wednesday. And they will be here through the startup, and they'll be here until they don't need to be here anymore, until the chaos settles into rhythm and into consistency. And I didn't have to tell them to do that. I didn't even have to ask them. They all said, "When do you want us there?" And so we laid out a calendar to tell them when we needed them here and what to do. And this is not a senior leadership team that's going to sit in a conference room and do their work, their day work while the operation is struggling and then pontificate about what could have been done better. That's not what's going to happen. We've got people assigned to be out on the ramp. We've got people assigned to be in the warehouse, people assigned to be in the kitchen. These are executive leadership, C-level leaders that are going to be out here until they don't have to be out here anymore. And that is what is missing in today's world. That is because their names are going to be on each of those functional areas.
Right.
And if something goes wrong, they can't point from their office in Atlanta and say, "Look what happened over there. You guys failed." They're going to have to say, "It's my fault." And they don't they're willing to stand up and do that. And that's why I'm so proud of this team and love working with these guys. And
That's
I'll be here too.
amazing.
I'll be here as long as I can be.
I love that.
That,
That's a good leadership team, my friend. You've done well with building that. I know it wasn't easy, but it sounds like you got a team full of bison on standby, man, ready to run through the
yeah.
storm, and that's what it takes.
Yep.
You didn't
You
build that overnight.
No, and you couldn't, if we didn't have that, we could not do this. We could not take this kind of contract on. It's too important to the customer. It's too important to, frankly, us. If we screw it up, it could be a major death knell for us. So yeah, if we didn't have the team we have, I never would have said yes.
So let me ask you a question a little bit deeper layered into that, and not to get into specifics of your leadership team, but how much of what you just expressed and let me and the viewers know, one, you're proud of them, but two, their readiness, right? It's kind of like soldier mindset. They're ready to go to war in Phoenix, and they're going to be committed to that war. They're going to stay steady in the rain until they have complete confidence that this is a go. We're good to go here. How much of that with your actual leadership team ties back to the four F bombs that you either emulate to them or that they live by? Is there any
Uh,
correlation to that?
oh, it's 1,000% tied back to that. So one of the things, if you go to our website and you look at, what we say about the kind of people that we're trying to hire, the first and most important thing that we care about is character. So if if you're a character driven person, then what does that really mean? Well, what that means is that you live in your faith, your family, your finances, and your fitness. All of them do, because those are character based traits. And so once you find the right kind of people, and then if you hire a bad one who you thought was driven by character, and then you have to replace them with somebody that truly is, and you fix that through iterations. Once you find the right people, and then they're naturally motivated by things like the four F bombs, you can draw them in all kinds of conversations all the time. It's not natural to have a discussion around fitness at an executive roundtable discussion. We talk about it all the time. What are you guys working on now? What's your program? How can I help you? What's your diet like? That's not discussions you have in a business setting normally. We do. Hey, how's it going with your family? What's going on with the problem with your kid? How do we help you? Do you need more time to go deal with that situation, et cetera? And so I didn't build anything. We as a team constructed warriors. I mean, we just have this innate trust and respect for each other, but then trust and respect for the brand. And so we are all accountable to make sure this brand is successful. That one of the things that one of the guys on our team says all the time is we have outsized commitment from our team that we don't deserve. I don't know if we don't deserve it, but it's a good way to put it, which is, we have people who are willing to give much more than the average organization is lucky enough to have.
That you couldn't tie some of this is just a cool little segue, but what you just said it ties exactly into my last point. And that was just good stuff. So it ties together. But so my last point on this, the rain reveals what's real is, the rain's going to strip away the comfort, the excuses, and the ego. However, It shows who's built for the mission, which is exactly what you just said to me. Your team is built for this kind of mission because why? They know how to stand in the damn rain.
That's right.
So I mean, it's the rain reveals what's real, aka the rain is going to reveal the true character, the true purpose, and how someone is going to react around you. And I think you have a fantastic opportunity with your team, which leads me to one of my last points, Mike, is, when we talked about the rain, we've talked about, how it creates adversity for us not to avoid. And then then it also shows us what's AKA real. So then you made a comment to me before the episode about pressure. And so strength is stillness under pressure. You're tying that back to the rain, meaning that running in the rain can symbolize reacting emotionally, aka panic, impulse, and avoidance. So now what we have to do is figure out, okay, how can we make this into something that we can use? How can we reveal our character and slow down when everybody else is running all around you? What's our natural instinct as humans? To run. The people that don't, those are different people. They are different human beings. You need to listen to what they say because it's valuable, right? Because it's rare and it's becoming more rare. But it's something that can be taught. Like you can learn these skills. And I think that's another thing that people get lost on. You're not born with everything. Sure, you're born with certain instincts, certain traits, but you can understand what it means to be under pressure and not have a panic attack, to not be anxiety riddled, to say, this is all I can do, and I'm going to give you 125%. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least I know now. It's called a feedback loop for a reason. We start at the top of the loop. We try something, we fail. We make an adjustment, we restart. That's a positive feedback loop. Even though you failed, you can't count that as a negative appropriation because you got back in the saddle and said, all right, I did this wrong. I'm going to do it this way now. Okay, when I get back to the top, what's the feedback here? What did I learn? What is the lesson learned? AKA after action reports. Everything we say ties together and it's not complex. It's not difficult, but so many people are unwilling to take the first step. You know why? Because there's never a perfect situation. You said it to me, I say it to you. If you wait for something to be perfect, you'll never start anything in your life because there is no perfect scenario. So Mike, strength is stillness under pressure. It's going to show how they react. Talk to me about leadership and how you would advise someone to be still.
It takes time and discipline and experience. Part of it is having the confidence to know you've been there before. Maybe not that exact scenario, but you've trained or you've learned or you've read or you've executed in some other ways. I think about a highly skilled operative, somebody who's trained in close combat and the average adult human in a very same scenario. Uh, there's a gunman on a bus, and you're on the bus, and you're either an average adult human or you're this highly trained operative. The world slows down for that operative in that scenario. The world gets very, very fast for the person who's inexperienced, who's never been there before, who doesn't understand it. And so that person can stay calm. They can they can unholster their weapon, they can find a safe firing position, and they can take a calm shot. The average human can't do that. They've never trained for it. And that's what it takes in leadership is you have to constantly put yourself in difficult situations. You're going to be put in them one way or the other. You have to try to navigate difficult situations. You have to learn. You have to find great mentors. You have to emulate what you see them do that you love so much. You have to not do the things you see the mentors that you don't appreciate, and move away from those gifts and traits. And that's how you do it. And then you constantly build out a team that helps you get there along the way. I mean, these guys are going to come into this operation and we're going to work 24 hours a day. And a lot of these guys are going to work 24 hours a day, a couple of days in a row. And then they're going to get a 4-hour rest and then they're going to come back and do it again. And that's how it's going to be for a little while. Everybody knows that. That's the rain. It's coming. Rain's coming. We're all going to be in it. Everyone's cool with it because they've been in these situations before. They understand the stakes and they understand what it's going to take to stay calm while we have a lot of people, we're going to have over 300 people in this facility that are not going to be calm, and that's cool. We know how to navigate that.
I remarkably, I didn't share my show notes with Mike today, my
No,
thoughts.
you sure didn't.
But I want to tell you what my second point is, and I think you'll find great joy in this. So my second point is a direct correlation to what you just said. Real leadership requires step one, slow down. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Second point to that, assess the situation. Exactly what you just said. And lastly, act with intention. You couldn't have said it any better for me. You gave a perfect example because that is a great way to put it. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but you couldn't have said that any more clear because that's exactly what happened. Train people like that. It get everything just there's truth to that. You see it in the movies, but that's reality. That's how they're trained to do stuff like that. Some of my best friends that were snipers, man, they're when they got under the trigger, man, their heart rate would go into places that most humans don't. And they're fixing to, do something that most humans will never do, and they're just in a different zone, man. And it's like that with leadership. When you get hit with that damn dumpster fire on Monday morning, how are you reacting to that? Like, are you slowing down or are you immediately emotionally uncontrollable and piss and vinegar, fire and brimstone, burning this place down? Or are you collectively gathering the information, slowing down, Mike, gathering the information and reacting with intention to solve the problems? Because that's where real leadership comes in. It goes back to that episode of emotional control. Again, I tell you weekly, that is my weakness. It is my weakness. I constantly have to read and try to do breath work to calm my ass down because I'm impulsive. I am trained to react quickly, and it correlates to my reactivity to problems. And what I have a problem with, Mike, and this isn't about me, but there's probably a lot more dudes like me, is I'm reactive, and it can be portrayed as being very aggressive when I don't even mean it to be. It's just who I am. I'm very, all right, bam. And then once I get that out, I can move on to something else. And as people are still shell shocked, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with y'all? Like, you just lost your damn mind. I'm like, no, I just was telling you my thoughts. Clearly, that is still something that I need to work through. But to my point, Mike, it's not that I'm losing control. It's just how I react, which means it doesn't always make it accurate or right. But to your point, I'm not scattering. I just have to learn how to better funnel that direction, right? To your point, with the leadership, slowing down, taking specific things and being intentional. So, to my last point, I want to get your thoughts on this. So, how can you tie all of everything we just said, right? We have the adversity, we know it's coming. Then we had it's going to reveal what's real in humans. And now we're talking about strength to stillness under pressure. So, how do you tie all of this together to have emotional control, clarity in chaos, and then men and women that can stay still in the storm until they make decisive decisions on how to get out of it? How do you tie all of that together to make a perfect recipe for someone to be a fantastic leader when the rain's coming?
Well, you may already have some thoughts in your show notes, but what I think of immediately is just red, green, blue, right? I just That's the first step is, can you train yourself to get, if you can't stay in the green, most people can't. No, we're not cyborgs, but can you train yourself to get back to the green as quickly as humanly possible, regardless of the chaos of the environment? So the guy walking through the rain is in the green. He understands what the situation is, knows what's going on. The guy running through the rain, he's in the red. He doesn't want to get wet, scared, wants to get out of it as soon as humanly possible. And so, that for me is kind of like the culmination of it all. But in order to get there in all situations, you have to train for those situations. You have to be prepared to expect problems and then be prepared to handle those problems. But what are your thoughts on it, Shane?
That's an absolutely great analogy. So let me ask you the next question. Let me follow up with that. For
Okay.
someone like myself, I'll give you a little test to help your little buddy here that works on impulse control, but has the ability or fortunately or unfortunately to go from 0 to 1,000 back to zero within a matter of a minute. How do you propose someone control that?
I recently had lunch with a family member I haven't seen in a long time, and we were talking about the Irish blood in our veins and how it creates that kind of that emotional instability from time to time. And unlike my some of my own siblings, I've been able to harness that a little bit better than they have. And I do think there's just some natural look. You are who you are, Shane. You all of your experiences made you who you are, including your reaction to situations. The thing that we have to do is, if we realize we have a weakness, is just continually work on it. I've got plenty of weaknesses that I continually work on, and own it when it happens. I had a general manager this morning who, if what he had observed had actually occurred, his coaching was entirely appropriate. But he coached a team member and then found out later from somebody else, actually what you saw was not what it was. So your first perspective wasn't actually what happened. And he immediately apologized for that. So as a leader, the first thing you do is admit when you're wrong, right? Whether that's leading your family or your business or whatever. And you again say, here's what I'm going to try next time. And you keep trying. It's just like when we're training guys in fitness. Look, here's the plan. You screwed it up. You didn't hit your macros today. You didn't do your workouts. You only did half of it, whatever. Okay, you screwed up. What are you going to do next week? And you build on that success week after week after week after week until the monster gets really, really tiny and you can finally kill it.
Yeah, I agree with every bit of that. You know, it's practice, it's consistency, and it's willing to admit your faults.
Yeah.
A lot of people are unable to do that. They either don't recognize it truly, or they ignore it and think it'll go away on its own. It will not. It will
And you need to
not.
surround yourself with people who are willing to tell you. Call you on your
Absolutely.
own shit.
Call me
Totally.
out.
I've got to, yeah, even my leadership team. Yes, I'm the CEO, and so I'm the boss. They openly tell me when I'm doing the wrong thing, and I love it. I'm like, okay, let's fix
So
that.
what you're saying is you're getting that feedback more than not, don't you?
But yeah, more than not, yeah, 92% of the time, yeah.
Just kidding, just kidding. But no, to kind of put a conclusionary bow on this, not sure that's even a word, but put a bow on all this. We know how I like to say maniacal, Mike. So let's put a bow on all this and maniacally end on a good note. How about that?
Let's do that.
So to your point, at the end of the day, it's not the rain is not the problem, right? We've established that. It's how you respond to it. And that's kind of the crux of this entire episode. It's an analogy, but it's not. Because I'll be completely honest, and this isn't when it's raining outside, I do not run. I just walk normal, and I have for years. It doesn't bother me. I'm like, what the hell's the good's it going to do to run? I'm just going to splash more rain up on myself. Typically, I get less wet by not running. Well, think about that analogy in real life. When you run in the rain, you oftentimes can create more mess. When you run in the chaos, guess what Guess what is happening? You're creating more mess versus slowing it down and taking a proactive approach. So the world doesn't need more men or women chasing comfort or shelter. It needs more men and women that can stand still, get soaked, and keep their eyes forward. That to me is what we need more of today than any other times in history. Now, granted, it's all relative. People may have been saying this 50 years ago, but we're definitely able to say it now. I mean, people go berserk over the stupidest things. So my last point to this, Mike, and I'll kick it back to you, is, when life starts to pour, because it's going to, again, we all have our own personal stuff going every single day, and so does everybody on your team. In your marriage, your business, your mindset, your physical fitness, just remember to not run. Plant your feet, breathe, walk through it, because that's where the strength is built, and that's where the leadership is forged. When you can learn to do those things, you're proactively chasing that 1% better version of yourself, and you're realizing, I don't need to create more chaos here. I need to find comfort in the stillness and in the pressure, because like we said before the episode, diamonds are made under pressure, and we need some more diamonds in the society today. What do you think about it, Mike?
I For viewers who are not watching but are only listening, all I'm doing is tying a bow. I've got nothing else to say about that, Shane.
Well, Mike, where can someone find us for all these excellent nuggets we just shared today? And additionally, if someone would want us to come in and speak to them directly one-on-one or to their teams, we love to be able to schedule that and go abroad and teach what we can teach and help other human beings. Where can someone find us?
Well, if you think we're any good on this podcast, man, you should see us live. We feed off a crowd. It's a lot of fun. So call us up. Let us come and talk to your team. But come to our website at www.leadershipignitionteam.com. From there, you can go to our Fuel and Focus page to learn how to get personal training results. You can listen to our podcast from the main page. Scroll down about the middle to see the podcast links. But also jump in the chat. We're there to chat with you real time, and or send us a contact request, and we'll reach back out to you and get engaged. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the fun spots.
Right on, man. Well, Mike, you tied the bow. So what do you say we put a finishing disclaimer on this episode once again? Well, thank you guys for joining us for another fantastic episode of the Leadership Ignition podcast. From Mike and I, we appreciated your time, your attention, and if you like this, please like, share, follow, subscribe, send it to other humans. That is how we can get our word out to more people. It's hard to do that on our own, so if you can share us with other people that may find this to be good content, we always appreciate that as well. Mike, great episode, buddy.
Yes, sir.
So, as always, sir, what are we going to do?
We're going to...
Let's get
lit.
Let's get lit, baby.
All right, everybody.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Ignition Team podcast. Go to our website at www.leadershipignitionteam.com to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, engage with us, and find your favorite podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.